G'day, it's Robbie again. Well, there's not much happening at the moment. I'm just tidying up a few odd jobs and just thought I'd shoot a bit of film while I'm doing it, and you can just see what I get up to in the days, and also show you a few things that you would have seen. Well, one of these you would have seen in one of the early videos, and that was, remember I got all that stuff off the side of the road a while back, ladders and nice piece of jarrah timber, and there was this plastic, well, I think it's the bottom, I'm sure it is. It was originally a plastic crate, and someone had cut it down, but they had to cut it right down, and there was a jagged edge all the way around. So I just got the circular saw and just went around and cut it down, and now, I mean, I've got this super duper work tray, which is really handy to, you know, keep stuff in place. So working on the dirty old jarrah oil stained bench top. Great to sort out nuts and bolts and stuff on, you know, and also I've been doing some spray painting, and so, you know, mixing up, that's what the paper's for. I had the can in here, so mixing up the paint, you know, if it does spill it's not going to run everywhere, and it cleans off plastic really easy. I'll show you that in a minute. So yeah, I've just given the old Schaublin 102 lathe a bit of a tizzy up, a few things that need doing to it. I mean, it's had a hard life, that lathe, really. Oh, poor thing, really. So what I'm doing on this is the 90-degree stop that goes under the bottom of the cross slide. So with a toolmaker's lathe, if the beam is going across this way, the bed, the cross slide goes across the compound, and it can rotate in any position, which is good. That's why toolmakers' lathes are really excellent. You know, you can move that cross slide all over the place. But if you want to go back to 90 easily, this comes up underneath the bottom of the cross slide, and then it butts up against the side of the bed, so that gives you your 90 degrees. Now this lathe is ancient, it's 1930s, and it's been absolutely hammered. Somebody actually broke the other end of this off, so there should be another one of these wings coming out this way. It was all snapped off, so I just cleaned it up. I originally started out a few days ago thinking I'd put a metal block on there to extend that back and bolt it through, you know, because there's no way you could, apart from welding, and I don't really want to weld this, cast to steel. I could braze it, but I haven't got a big enough brazing system. You'd need oxy to do this. So anyway, I decided not to go on with that idea, because if I bolt through, there's not a lot of metal here to put cap head screws through into. Doesn't really matter because you still get your 90 anyway. A lot of people use the toolmaker's lathes without one of these anyway. In fact, it wasn't even fitted when I got it. Part of the problem too was that in all the years of being put on, taken off, it had worn the dovetail, that the key, this is a keyway that goes up underneath the cross slide, it had worn one side of that away enough that it needed a shim, and I had it shimmed originally with a piece of brass which was glued on with God knows what. I forget what I put it on with, it's been on so long. Anyway, that, when I took it off and was mucking around with this, that fell off, so then I had to redo it, and I replaced the brass with which was a little bit oversized, it was a bit snug. I replaced that with some stainless steel, spring steel. And I just used old filler gauge. You would have seen in one of my old videos, you know, where people often, you know, at garage sales sell filler gauges really cheap, because, you know, most cars these days, most vehicles don't have points in them, so there's not much need for filler gauges for automotive use. Pick up a pack of filler gauges and they make great packing for, you know, setting your tool height if you've just got a, you know, non-adjustable tool holder. And then you can cut them down and make shims out of them, and you probably won't be able to see very well, but I've aerodided it on this time with some 2-pack epoxy. Nothing else really would do the job. It's a little bit proud, and I've got to just sand that edge back. So I just thought I'd show you what I'm going to do. Now, to sand that back, you know, I don't know if everybody's got one of, many people have got one of these, but these are a little air tool with a 90-degree head on it. These are awesome for this sort of work because you've got a little sanding disc that just sticks on and unsticks. I've got a jar of them here. Yeah, they come out like that. They're just a little oxide disc that just peels off with a bit of heat, and then you stick the new one on and you're good to go. This one's getting pretty old, but it lasts quite a long time. So yeah, rather than just, you know, have the basic pencil head die grinders like this one, which you would have seen this kit heaps of times. You know, I use this all the time. Look, the lid's all cracked to hell and half the anodizer's worn off. Super handy kits, these. These are just fantastic, you know, if you've got an air compressor. And you've got to have a decent air compressor, you know, but, well, a half decent one at least. So, yeah, that's the one I normally use, but for this sort of work, you know, yeah, you use one of these little gadgets. I'll stick it in the vise and give you a demo. Yeah, well, this is cast iron, obviously. You can see I've padded the jaws just with a bit of bent tin. That's all you need. It just stops that hex pattern marking stuff. You can see these are all beat up and really well used. I've used these for years and years. You know, simple things like this can make life easier in your workshop. All right, we'll just sand this back. Yeah, did a good job, perfect. I mean, using that little gadget, that 90-degree air sander, you're not putting a lot of heat into the job. You know, you're not going to weaken the glue and make it lose its strength. So just doing it gradually and slowly is the way to go. The other alternative is you could use the pencil air die grinder with one of these rotary cylinder heads. They work quite well. You can go along the job like that. These are a coarser grit, but they will still do the job quite nicely. Provided you kept it moving, you'd get it pretty good. But of course the 90-degree one gives you a perfectly flat finish, you know, because it's just coming along on the correct plane, you know, whereas the rotary one's putting a curved surface on there, this is putting it flat. So yeah, so the job's done, so hopefully it all goes back together now. Well, I had this off, I also painted underneath. That was the wrong colour, it was blue and it should be black. So we'll put that together and see if it all works. Well, here's the compound, and you can see the cross slide going across. And here's our 90-degree stop, well, locator I suppose you could say. That goes up underneath here and it goes up against the side of the bed and gives you your 90-degree position. You know. But I mean, yes, the beauty of these toolmakers lathes is you can move the cross slide into any position you want because you've got total control over it, you see. So you can do tapers and cones and anything, absolutely piss easy. It gives you a lot of range to go that way on any arc, and of course the top slide can go on any arc as well. So say for instance you wanted to machine a perfectly flat disc, well you could do it by setting up the cross slide rather than the top slide, which you would have to do on most ordinary lathes, and most ordinary lathes don't have a long travel top slide like this one. So toolmakers lathes are fantastically flexible. You can do all sorts of work with them. So this just pulls off. And there's the pull down bolt there. Just goes into a keyway on the bottom of the cross slide. So will it fit? I haven't tried it. I hope it does. I hope it does. good. That's good. Yeah, that's what you want. You can position this anywhere along here, but to give yourself the correct travel, you would normally have up this end more. That's it. She's on. So that gives you your 90 degrees. Pull that up. Yeah, how's this for clearance? Oh, that'll be right. Oh no, it's a bit close. Bugger it. I'll have to add another washer to stop that little arm going around so far. So this is where that sorting tray I knocked up. Is it going to be handy? You can see the bottom, you know, it's part of a crate. So yeah, you can put your goodies on and sort them out without them going everywhere. I'm sure we'll have a washer here somewhere. I've got a zillion washers. What have we got? I can go thicker or just put two there. You'd think that with all these washers, and this is just part of my selection, there'd be a washer, you know, ready to hand. It would be the exact thickness to do the job, but no, it doesn't work that way. Never does. I even had to get out the real small ones to check, but I did finally find one which is going to do the job quite nicely. I found this brass one which looked good, but wrong thickness. So I'll show you the one on there, and yeah, we can put it back together. Yeah, well that's pretty right. It's where it should be, so I can just back it off, and it's not going to, I mean, it's good. That just is the off position there. Just pull it up so it's not going to hit the bed which goes across there. Beautifully made, these Schaublins. I mean, superb machine. But as you know, as I said, this has had a hell of a hard life, this one. Right, this is the original tailstock that came with this old lathe. It's the usual Schaublin cam lock job. And I mean, all the Schaublin stuff is totally interchangeable, you know, across all the decades of been making the stuff. You know, you can take a tailstock from a 1930s model like this and put it on a 1970s and 80s or whatever model, and everything will line up perfectly. That's how precision made they are. They're a wonderful machine, really. Anyway, this is okay. It's got the usual, it had the original 2-degree Schaublin taper. Luckily someone had already changed that to a Morse 1, which a lot of them got changed to, because you know, the other ones have got to use Schaublin stuff, and it's hellish expensive, and if you can even find it. So Morse 1 fits. These are super hard quills, so whoever did it, they did a good job, but I mean, yeah, they're super hard. You find that like tapers on live centres and that aren't hardened normally. You can remachine them, you can rework them, you know, and I've worked Morse 1s down to Morse 0 for the old Schaublin. So if you had, say, a 2-degree Schaublin, you could rework Morse 1 down to the 2-degree quite easily. You've already got the toolmaker's lathe, so you can do it on the toolmaker's lathe, you know. Piece of cake. Okay, yeah, anyway, a while back I got another 102 Schaublin. It was laying under a tree. Poor thing. It had been down the beach and it was a bit rusty, and then an Italian guy bought it and he had it sitting under a tree, and I bought it as a, you know, for the part, basically. Anyway, it's got a Morse 2 much heavier tailstock on it, so that's what I've been painting up. It was in pretty bad shape, paint-wise, mechanically perfect, like brand new. The whole lathe, in fact, was like brand new. It had done virtually no work, but it had just been standing and looked pretty tatty, to say the least. So I'll show you what I've been doing with that. with masking tape, if you ever do spray painting, you always want to take it off within 48 hours, preferably 24. Otherwise it will just stick like crazy. You know, the sooner you get off the better, the easier. Even then you've still got a little bit of glue, so we'll just clean up with a little bit of petrol and a bit of toilet paper. Should be good. Good to go. Oh, she's good to go. The paint job's not perfect, but it's good enough. I'll probably rub it back in again and give it another coat down the track, but I mean the old Schaublins, they sprayed straight over the casting. They didn't use Bondo on the really early ones at all, no filler. So, you know, what you see is the casting. It's yeah, it's pretty good really. So that'll do, and we've got some authenticity there. So now it's just a matter of, I'll put the two tailstocks side by side and you can see the difference. This one is a lot heavier, way heavier. And from this angle you can see that they're quite different. This is obviously a much lighter tailstock. This would be basically the standard tailstock that came with those units, if there is such a thing with Schaublin, because they built the lathes to the customer specifications quite often, and most of these went to industry because the average guy just couldn't afford the horrendous amount of money they wanted for them and still do want for Schaublin. They were top shelf lathes and still are. So looking at these, you've got to say, well, this is, yeah, the sort of standard tailstock, and this is some specialised heavy duty one, really. Surprisingly heavy, because, you know, when you look at it, 102 Schaublins aren't really a heavy duty machine. They're a toolmaker's lathe, and that's it. But anyway, it was made for some special job, I think. I'm thinking maybe it was made for centre boring, and the fact that this crank goes in the reverse direction to extend the quill, I think you maybe just pull down it would be easier than pushing away if you're sort of driving a drill bit into something. I don't know, it's just a guess. Anyway, there you have it. A look at Schaublin land and the weirdness that goes with it at times. And yeah, well, that's it from me. See you next time. Cheers.